I sat at a family dinner in Munich, smiling politely as my boyfriend's mother served me another plate of food I could barely identify. For 2 years, I thought his family hated me. Every visit was torture. His mother criticized everything I did. His father interrogated me about American politics for hours. His sister compared me to his ex-girlfriend constantly. I was ready to end the relationship because I couldn't handle his family anymore. Then, halfway through dinner, his mother raised her glass and said, "Jessica, you passed. Welcome to the family." I was confused. Past what? That's when they told me the truth. Every uncomfortable moment, every strange test, every criticism for 2 years was completely intentional. They were testing me, and I had no idea. My name is Jessica, and I met Stefan at a business conference in New York 3 years ago. He was different from American guys I dated, direct, intelligent, and emotionally honest in a way that felt refreshing. We fell in love quickly. Within 6 months, he invited me to Germany to meet his family. I was nervous, but excited. Stefan kept saying his family would love me. I prepared for weeks, learning basic German phrases, researching German culture, buying appropriate gifts. I wanted to make a perfect first impression. The first dinner at his family home should have been my warning sign. His mother Petra greeted me politely but coldly. No hug, no warm welcome, just a formal handshake and a look that felt like an X-ray scanning my soul. She served dinner, traditional German food I'd never seen before. Heavy, rich, with textures that made my stomach turn. But I smiled and ate everything, complimenting each dish. Petra watched me the entire time, saying nothing, just observing. It felt like being studied under a microscope. Stefan's father, Klaus, spent the entire evening asking me questions that felt more like an interrogation than conversation. He asked what I knew about German history. When I mentioned World War II, he said my understanding was superficial and American-centric. He asked about American foreign policy, gun violence, healthcare, education. Every answer I gave, he challenged. Not in a friendly debate way, but in a way that made me feel stupid and ignorant. I left that dinner feeling like I'd failed an exam I didn't know I was taking. His sister Anna barely spoke to me during that first visit. She just stared at my clothes, my hair, my makeup, with a look of obvious judgment. When she finally did speak, it was to ask why American women wear so much makeup during the day. I tried to laugh it off, but she wasn't joking. She was genuinely questioning my choices. Stefan kept telling me not to worry, that his family was just being typically German, direct and honest. I wanted to believe him. The second visit was worse. Petra served me liver, which I absolutely hate. I'd mentioned this to Stefan months earlier, but there it was on my plate, and Petra was watching me again with those cold, analytical eyes. I forced myself to eat it, every disgusting bite, because I didn't want to be rude. Klaus started another political debate, this time about American ignorance of world geography. He asked me to name all the German states. I couldn't. He looked disappointed, like I'd confirmed every negative stereotype he had about Americans. Anna escalated her criticism. She pointed out that I held my fork and knife wrong, that Americans eat like children who never learned proper table manners. She said my clothes were too casual for a family dinner, that I dressed like I was going to a shopping mall. She asked why I laughed so much, saying American women laugh at things that aren't funny to seem agreeable. Every comment felt like a knife. I spent that entire visit fighting back tears. By visit 3, I started dreading trips to Germany. Stefan kept reassuring me that his family just needed time to warm up to me, but I saw no evidence of warming. If anything, they got colder and more critical. Petra began speaking only German during meals, forcing me to struggle through conversations with my limited vocabulary. When I made mistakes, she didn't correct me kindly. She just looked disappointed and moved on. Klaus's questions became more aggressive. He asked why Americans think they're exceptional when they're ignorant about most of the world. He asked why we're so loud and take up so much space everywhere we go. The worst moment came during visit 4. Anna told me right in front of everyone that Stefan's ex-girlfriend was more elegant, more cultured, and more suitable for their family. She said the ex-girlfriend spoke 3 languages fluently, understood classical music, and knew how to behave in sophisticated social settings. The implication was clear. I was none of those things. I was just a loud, unsophisticated American who didn't belong. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried for 20 minutes. Stefan found me and promised things would get better, but he couldn't explain why his family treated me this way. Year 2 brought new levels of testing I didn't recognize as tests. Petra invited me to help her cook dinner. I was excited, thinking this was finally a bonding moment. Instead, she criticized every single thing I did. I chopped vegetables wrong. I stirred the pot incorrectly. I seasoned food too much or too little. Nothing I did was right. She never yelled or got emotional. She just calmly pointed out each failure, her face expressionless. I felt like a child being scolded by a teacher who'd given up on me. Klaus started testing my knowledge of European history and culture. He'd bring up obscure historical events and ask my opinion. When I admitted I didn't know enough to have an opinion, he'd lecture me for 30 minutes about American education failures. He asked why Americans study their own history obsessively, but know nothing about Europe. He asked why we think the world revolves around America. Every conversation left me feeling defensive and inadequate. Anna's tests were more personal and cruel. She questioned every life choice I'd made. Why did I choose my career? Why wasn't I more ambitious? Why did I plan to keep working after marriage instead of focusing on family? She compared me constantly to other women Stefan had dated, always finding me lacking. She criticized my voice, saying Americans have a specific tone that sounds fake and performative. She said I smiled too much, that it seemed insincere and exhausting to watch. The breaking point came during a visit in year 2. We were all sitting in the living room after dinner. Klaus asked me what I thought about American cultural imperialism. I tried to give a balanced answer, acknowledging both positive and negative aspects of American cultural influence. He interrupted me and said, "Americans always do this. You can't just admit you're wrong. You have to qualify everything and make excuses." I snapped. I told him I was tired of being interrogated and judged every single visit. I said his family had made it clear they didn't like me, and I didn't understand why Stefan kept bringing me back. The room went silent. Petra and Klaus exchanged a look. Anna smiled for the first time since I'd met her. Stefan looked panicked. Klaus said, "Finally." Some honesty. I was confused. Petra said, "We were beginning to wonder if you'd ever stop being so polite and compliant." I had no idea what was happening. Stefan took my hand and said, "Jessica, I need to tell you something. My family has been testing you this entire time." He explained that his family has a tradition going back generations. When someone brings home a potential spouse, the family tests them. Not obviously or cruelly, but through subtle challenges designed to reveal character. They test patience, resilience, cultural adaptability, and commitment. They need to know if the person is strong enough to handle family dynamics, secure enough to withstand criticism, and genuine enough to be themselves under pressure. Petra spoke next. She said every challenging meal was a test of my politeness and willingness to respect their culture even when uncomfortable. She served me liver because Stefan had told her I hated it. She wanted to see if I'd complain or power through. I powered through every time. Klaus said every political debate was testing if I'd defend my beliefs or just agree to be liked. He wanted to see if I had a spine. Anna said every criticism of my appearance and behavior was testing if I'd break down or stand firm. She wanted to know if I was secure enough to not need constant validation. I was furious. I asked why they couldn't just get to know me like normal people instead of putting me through 2 years of psychological torture. Klaus said, "Because people perform for a few visits. They show you who they want you to see. We needed to see who you are when you're uncomfortable, when you're criticized, when you're pushed. Now we know you're real." Petra added, "You never complained about the food. You never stopped trying to communicate in German even when it was difficult. You defended your country and your beliefs without being defensive or arrogant. You kept coming back even when we gave you every reason to leave." Anna said something that made me understand. She said, "My brother's last girlfriend passed all the surface tests. She was polite, well-educated, spoke perfect German. But the moment we challenged her, she became cruel and showed her true character. We pushed harder and harder, and you stayed kind. You stayed patient. You stayed yourself. That's what we needed to see." Stefan looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. If you knew it was a test, it wouldn't have been real." Petra stood up and hugged me, the first physical affection she'd ever shown. She said, "You're stronger than any woman Stefan has ever brought home. You have patience, grace, and authenticity. Welcome to our family." Klaus shook my hand firmly and said, "You have my respect. That's not something I give easily." Anna smiled genuinely and said, "I'm sorry I was so harsh, but I needed to make sure you were good enough for my brother." You are. I didn't know whether to cry, laugh, or scream. 2 years of feeling inadequate and judged were intentional. 2 years of struggling to earn their approval when I'd already earned it months ago but didn't know. Stefan said his family had actually approved of me after the first 6 months. They kept testing to be absolutely certain. They needed to see if I'd maintain my character under extended pressure. I asked why German families do this. Petra explained that in German culture, family is everything. Marriages don't just unite two people, they unite two families. She said, Americans marry for love and hope the families work out. Germans make sure the families work out because love alone isn't enough. Looking back, I understood every test. The liver tested respect for their culture. The political debates tested my ability to stand my ground. Anna's criticisms tested my self-confidence. Klaus's interrogations tested my intelligence and resilience. Petra's coldness tested if I could earn trust slowly over time. The dinner ended with Petra bringing out a bottle of expensive wine she'd been saving. She said, "This is for family only. Now you're family." We drank and talked for hours, and for the first time they were warm, funny, and welcoming. Klaus told jokes. Anna asked about my life with genuine interest. Petra shared stories about Stefan's childhood. It was the family dinner I'd been dreaming about for 2 years, and it only happened because I'd survived their tests without knowing I was being tested. Stefan told me later that his ex-girlfriend had failed the tests within 3 months. She complained about the food, refused to try speaking German, and eventually told his family they were rude and cold. His family immediately told him she wasn't right for him. He broke up with her a month later. He said watching me endure 2 years of testing while staying kind and patient made him certain I was the one he wanted to marry. I asked him if he thought the tradition was fair. He said, "Fair? Maybe not. Effective? Absolutely. My family has been doing this for generations, and we have almost no divorces. Every marriage that survived the testing period lasted until death. The ones who quit during testing would have quit during the first real marriage challenge. This way, we know before the wedding instead of after." I couldn't argue with that logic. The tradition felt cruel from the outside, but from the inside it made sense. They weren't testing if I was perfect. They were testing if I was real. Could I handle discomfort without complaining? Could I maintain kindness under criticism? Could I persist through rejection? Could I respect a culture different from my own? Could I love Stefan enough to endure his family even when they seemed to hate me? The answer to all those questions was yes, and now his family knew it too. American families tend to welcome new partners immediately with enthusiasm and warmth, assuming love will make everything work out. German families, or at least Stefan's family, did the opposite. They assumed nothing and tested everything. Neither approach is wrong. They're just different philosophies about what makes a lasting family bond. Americans bet on love and hope. Germans bet on character and proof. I understand now why Stefan couldn't tell me. If I'd known it was a test, I would have performed instead of being genuine. I would have tried to pass, instead of just being myself under pressure. The only way to see someone's true character is to test them without their knowledge. It's manipulative, yes, but it's also brutally honest about what marriage and family actually require: patience, resilience, and the ability to stay kind when things are hard. 6 months after that dinner, Stefan proposed. His family threw us an engagement party where Petra gave a speech. She said, "Jessica didn't just pass our tests. She exceeded every expectation. She showed us that strength isn't about never struggling. It's about struggling with grace." I cried, finally understanding that every horrible moment had been building toward this acceptance. Now, when I visit Germany, everything is different. Petra teaches me family recipes with patience. Klaus debates me about politics as equals. Anna and I have become genuine friends. They respect me because I earned it through 2 years of unknowingly proving myself. And as much as I hated the testing while it was happening, I'm grateful for it now. I know without doubt that his family respects and accepts me. I didn't just marry into this family. I fought my way in, and that makes belonging mean something deeper.